Hello, welcome to FightCore USA.
What's up, guys? Today, we're talking about one of the most basic submissions in all of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The armbar from the guard. And we're gonna look at why it's so effective, how to do it properly, and also how to defend against it. One of the worst positions that you can be in is lying on your back with somebody in your guard. Not only are they going to have easy access to your face with punches, but if you don't have a way to get their hips off you, you're going to be stuck there forever. So, being on your back is a bad position. Don't get me wrong, it's not hopeless. You gotta have some kind of plan. Now, this armbar that we're looking at today comes from the book Mastering the Guard by John and it is one of my favorite moves from the book because it has such a simple and straightforward submission. It's just beautifully simple. The concept is very simple. If you isolate one of an opponent's arms and then hyperextend their elbow, you're gonna cause a lot of pain. So what makes this move work so well is that it's something that people expect. When you watch any martial art movie, when you see somebody go for an armbar, it's usually from the top. They have both arms and they reach over and grab an arm and try to pull it across their body like this and bend the elbow. That's an armbar. What they don't show in the movies is that you can also do this from the bottom. If you think about it, when someone's in the guard and they pull guard, what they're really trying to do is isolate the arm and prevent the other arm from coming over and helping out. That's why they pull guard. If you think about it from the bottom player's perspective, they want to do the exact same thing. They want to isolate the other arm. So the idea here is that we gonna use our legs to do the work for us and try to bend the elbow. No, this move is definitely not for everybody. There's a certain type of person who will never be able to do this move effectively. But if you have the flexibility and mobility in your hips, it's something that you can definitely train and get good at. This submission is essentially a triangle colored choke. You have one arm isolated and you're bending the elbow. Think of it like a triangle colored choke from the bottom. What happens is, when you do this, you're going to push open the posture and the head is going to move away. So the problem with this is that if you have a more experienced opponent on top of you, they're going to know to turn their head away, kind of like a colored choke. But if you have an inexperienced opponent or even a guard pass, oftentimes what will happen is they'll try to gouge out your eyes. When you do this, they read on. Now, try to gouge out your eyes and that ass. Exactly. When you now reach over and grab that arm and pull it across your body and lock up that elbow. Now again, this is not an easy move to do. You really need to have mobile hips. In fact, even to just get into this position, you need to have pretty decent shoulder mobility. You'll now notice I have my left arm across my body and I'm reaching over and grabbing the right arm. My shoulder is actually flexed, right? My arm is bent as I'm reaching over. So, this requires a lot of shoulder mobility. Some people won't be able to get into this position, but once you have the arm isolated, no, it's a matter of getting that elbow locked up. And the beauty of this move is that you don't need a whole lot of leverage. Because again, you're using your legs, you're using your hips. Even though you're on the bottom, you're still able to control the arm and bend the elbow. If you've ever been in this position before, you know how painful it is. One thing that I will say is that if you're doing this, make sure that you really focus on pushing that elbow open. Because again, if the head moves away, you're gonna be in trouble. If you have an experienced opponent, they're gonna know to turn their head away. But if you have an inexperienced opponent or even a guard pass, what they'll do is they'll try to gouge out your eyes. And when they do that, that's when you reach over and grab that arm and pull it across your body. Now, the key here is that you want to make sure that you don't squeeze too tight. Because again, if you squeeze too tight, you're gonna cut off blood flow to the brain. You don't want to do that. Just squeeze tight enough so that you can get the tap. Now, if you're worried about them gouging out your eyes, you can always reach over and grab the head and push it away. But again, if you have an experienced opponent, they're going to know to do that. And if they know that you're going for the armbar, they'll try to turn away. That's why it's so important to have the element of surprise. If you come up into this position and you're able to catch them off guard, it's going to be much easier. But let's talk about some ways that we can defend this position. How do we defend this move? Well, the first thing is that you want to have an understanding of what the goal is. The goal is to isolate one arm and then hop and extend the elbow. So, the easiest way to prevent this is to keep your arms close to your body. If you have your arms spread out like this, it's going to be very difficult to isolate one arm and bend the elbow. If you have your arms close to your body, it's going to be much more difficult to do that. The second thing that you want to do is you want to try to cover up your head. Again, they're going to try to gouge out your eyes, so you want to protect yourself there. The third thing that you can do is you can try to gouge out their eyes. Just kidding. No, but really, that's what they're gonna try to do. So you want to be ready for that. And the final thing is that you want to try to get your hips underneath them. Because again, they want to isolate your arm and bend your elbow. And the best way to prevent that is to have your hips underneath them. So if you can get your weight shifted back and your hips underneath them, it's going to be a lot harder for them to isolate your arm. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to follow for more content. And if you really want to take your training to the next level, check out our online academy. We have a huge catalog of classes taught by some of the best instructors in the world. There's a few things to keep in mind when you're doing this. First of all, again, you want to make sure that you're squeezing tight enough to get the tap, but not so tight that you cut off blood flow to the brain. That's something that you're just going to have to figure out through experience. The second thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you re-pushing that elbow open. Because again, if the head moves away, you're going to be in trouble. If you have an experienced opponent, they're going to know to do that. That's why it's so important to have the element of surprise. If you come up into this position and you're able to catch them off guard, it's going to be much easier. The last thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you're re-protecting yourself from the gouge. Because again, they're going to try to gouge out your eyes, so you want to be ready for that. This is a great way to finish a guard par. I've done it many times in competitions. It's a great way to finish a submission attempt. If you're on the bottom and you have an inexperienced opponent, this is a great way to get the tap. I remember the first time I tried this move. I was training with a black belt, and he let me do this move on him. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the easiest submission in the world. And then he started screaming bloody murder. And I was like, oh my God, I think I just tapped a black belt. It was one of the coolest feelings in the world. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. As always, thank you so much for watching. Train hard and good luck.
Okay guys, thank you for watching my videos.